Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everyone doing this Tuesday morning, September 3rd? Tuesday morning. Hope you are all doing well this morning. Let me know if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me. Good morning, good morning. How is everyone doing? My name is Meteorologist Mike Linden. I am a member of the My Radar team here in Orlando, Florida. Again, it is Tuesday, 7:30 in the morning in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. Hope you are all doing well. We are, of course, tracking Hurricane Dorian as we are going to be discussing the latest information and analysis regarding Dorian's path, what we can expect today out of this historic storm. So as you can see, Dorian sitting on infrared imagery there just has barely moved. In fact, in the National Hurricane Center updates, under movement, it says stationary. Dorian is just not moving, which is insane when you consider that the average human being can walk 3 miles per hour, and Dorian is not moving. It's pretty wild. But for the folks that live in Grand Bahama, Marsh Harbor, I mean, you are talking about some of the worst conditions that one can go through. Just some of the videos and images and even the audio that has come out of the Bahamas is just truly heartbreaking. So you've got to keep those people in your thoughts. I would imagine that the rescue efforts as well as the humanitarian efforts in the Bahamas, once all this is over, is going to take some time, considering how just the pounding that the Bahamas are getting from this monster storm. As we take a look, though, at Dorian has actually begun to weaken a little bit. It is no longer the Category 5 or the Category 3 storm or Category 4 storm that it once was. In fact, it is now down to 120 miles per hour sustained winds. That would mean that Dorian is a Category 3. You can see as well that the outer bands of it there are starting to expand a little bit. Well, there's good reason for that. Look at the eye of the storm. It's barely holding on. It's already begun to undergo that eye wall replacement, and that does help to weaken the storm a little bit. But on the flip side, it also helps to expand the wind field a little bit. So the folks in West Palm Beach likely feeling some strong gusts coming in right now. Something else to keep in mind, too, is that there's actually a process called upwelling that's happening right now as Dorian approaches the coastline. And really what that means is that the cooler water from the lower portion of the ocean is getting picked up, brought to the top, close to the coastline especially, and then Dorian is kind of sucking up that cooler water in the same way that convection is aided by warm, wet air. This in the sense that the air is a little bit cooler and not necessarily helping Dorian get stronger, if that makes any sense. So the upwelling helping to quell Dorian from growing a little bit too. But it is not far off the coastline now. And the latest track, actually, you'll see in just a moment here, looking better for the folks along the eastern coast of Florida, but there are numerous watches and warnings in place nonetheless. You can see those orange boxes there. Those are tropical storm watches. If the boxes are filled in, like for Orlando, it is a tropical storm warning. The coastline has a hurricane warning in place. That's that pinkish, reddish color. And then the green is a flood warning, and there are numerous ones of those in place over central and northern Florida. Just anticipating the amount of rain coming from Dorian. You can see on the satellite radar imagery now, we can almost fully see the storm on United States radar. Just a small piece of it there on the eastern edge that's still not necessarily showing up as clear as it could be, but man, there it is. There's Dorian pulling in some thunderstorms over the Orlando metro area too. And if we look once again on the NORAD radar, you can actually see that eye wall really running ragged. It's no longer that perfectly circular, cylindrical eye. Dorian is definitely losing some steam here, and I know it may look a little more impressive on the live sweeping radar here. But again, this is not the same storm that it once was, let alone 12 hours ago, but especially so 24 hours ago. So for folks from Fort Lauderdale northward, it is going to get a little active for you today, let alone the winds. It is going to likely be pretty noisy through most of the morning and through the afternoon and evening as thunderstorms come ashore. But here is the path from the National Hurricane Center, and we are awaiting the turn. The turn has yet to happen, considering Dorian remains stationary, but there's a lot at play here with Dorian. There is the possibility for Dorian to continue to advance just a bit more westward, which would likely push some of those tropical storm winds ashore, but likely still avoiding landfall, as we need the eye to make landfall in order to deem it so. But you can see here 80 to 100 miles off the coastline is now the official track for the Orlando metro area and for the Melbourne area of Florida, and this is really welcoming news when you consider the impacts that could have occurred had Dorian made landfall in Florida, and that is still a possibility, but it is quickly waning. It is no longer likely going to be a landfalling hurricane here in the United States, or I should say in Florida. Not necessarily in the United States. There is still the possibility of that, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, but you can see here that Dorian would rather be significantly off the coastline here. Still close enough at major hurricane status at a 3 to push some of those winds ashore. And this is a very similar path to Hurricane Matthew from 2016 that did produce some big flooding in the Jacksonville area. So that is certainly something that we are going to continue to monitor. Not to mention Dorian expected by the end of the week to potentially make landfall in Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, pretty close to the Wilmington area where Florence made landfall last year. And then as you see toward next weekend, it's actually a small possibility of Dorian heading up toward the northeastern corridor, maybe even bringing some rain, potentially even some storm surge to the New York, New Jersey area. Very, very interesting stuff. And we've discussed a couple of times that Dorian likely going to be retired, and I would expect this is going to be the last time you're going to see the name Dorian associated with a tropical event. Now let's look at the probability of 40-mile-per-hour winds, and what it means by cumulative is it's just adding it up, right? Like, what is the best shot at us getting those 40-mile-per-hour winds over an extended period of time, this being over the course of a couple of days. And it's all along the coast, go figure. From Fort Pierce all the way to Daytona Beach, likely going to be where we'll find the strongest gusts, and that extends northward into Jacksonville, too. That will continue to advance. Again, those stronger winds, the hurricane-force winds, will be right up along the coastline of South Carolina as we head into Thursday morning. So for folks in the low country and in North Carolina, you are not out of the woods just yet by any means. So now is the time for you to be preparing. The folks in Florida, hopefully you've done your preps and you are, hunkered down and ready to go. But we are just not there yet as far as being able to deem an all clear. A storm surge warning in place as well for most of the eastern coastline of the state of Florida, extending from Lantana all the way to Jacksonville. That actually extends into southeastern Georgia too, close to Savannah, near Brunswick. Everything else, a storm surge watch. Potentially could be looking at a lot of water, 4 to 7 feet for the storm surge warning areas, and for the storm surge watch, 2 to 4 feet within the next 24 to 48 hours. Again, the Atlantic coastline of Florida under that hurricane warning. This is pretty much a precautionary measure from Jupiter all the way to the Palm Coast. North of that, through Jacksonville, again, a hurricane watch. Over the past 24 hours, we have received numerous storm reports along the eastern coast of Florida, reporting wind gusts up near 40 to near 45 miles per hour. This is just kind of the outer band of Dorian, and those are just gusts, mind you, so the sustained winds aren't here just yet. A lot has been made about the path of Dorian. And you can see here I've selected 3 major hurricanes to all come super close to Florida but not make landfall. We've got Andrew, Matthew, and Floyd, all narrowly missing the Sunshine State, but still coming maybe a little too close for comfort, especially Andrew there, which is a difference maker of a storm that changed the way that building code is done here in the Sunshine State. As far as Matthew goes in 2016, a very similar path to Dorian, super similar, and you can really see it. Let me grab the pointer tool. You can really see it, especially here. Dorian came in over here from the east, kind of following Andrew's path, but once we get to about here, that's when it's kind of picked up the Matthew path, and will likely follow along eastern Florida and potentially up and into the Carolinas. Again, there's still more that has to be done as far as modeling to give an all clear to South and North Carolina, so that we are just simply far too early for that to be the case. So if you live in any of those areas, you most definitely need to be prepared. You have to have your hurricane plan ready to rock now. Let me jump back over here. Okay. So now let's look at the steering currents, right? This is super important as well. This has really been behind the scenes as to Dorian's movement. So this ridge of high pressure to the east. You know what? Let me make this full screen again. There we go. Okay. So high pressure normally rotates clockwise. We got another ridge down here in the Gulf of Mexico. And when you hear the word ridge, it's simply referring to the way that the pressure and the air builds around it. It's like an upside down U. A trough of low pressure is actually built like a U, built like a trough, like you would see on a farm, right? I mean, it's a trough. You could fill it up with water, right? That is the trough right there. And troughs are going to, or this trough rather, is going to dig in kind of underneath this ridge of high pressure and begin to kind of nudge it away from us. This ridge of high pressure was actually located up and around here yesterday, so it's already begun to sink a little bit before getting kind of fully pushed off to the east by this incoming trough here. So once that occurs and that high gets kind of pushed off, notice that the air around it rotates clockwise, and that's why Dorian is kind of stalled out a little bit. It's lost its steering, at least right now. Now what we expect to happen, at least over the next 24 hours, is for Dorian to get that steering flow back on again, and again follow a super similar path to Matthew from a couple of years back. That is what is happening in the big picture here. The wind radii, this is showing us simply the hurricane force winds, that being that red dot there, how likely it is to impact you. And notice a miss for Florida in that regard. Looks like it would just be tropical storm force winds, but you can't say the same for potentially North Carolina later this week. Again, it's still too early to let you know exactly what the forecast is going to be, but it is definitely something that we have to continue to watch for moving forward. But most of the models now, keeping Dorian offshore. It's good when you start to see agreement on the models, especially with Dorian right there. It's right off the coastline. So the next 2 days are going to prove to be very crucial, let alone for where Dorian is going, but for folks that live along Florida's eastern coast. You need to be prepared in case Dorian does deviate a little bit to the west, because that could essentially bring the storm to you. For folks that live in Georgia, South, and North Carolinas, now is the time to prepare. You need to get your hurricane supplies, food, water, batteries, some lanterns. Be sure that you're filled up on your medications. Maybe have some cash on hand. Now is the time to be sure that you are prepared, because once Dorian is sitting on your doorstep, it is too late. So that is what we've got as far as the graphics go. Let me pull the path back up here. Jump back over to this computer. Oh, whoops. Okay. If you guys have any questions for me, now is the time to ask them. Oh my gosh, so many questions on YouTube. We got people saying we got good audio that they can hear. Fantastic. Someone is asking, are there more hurricanes? Well, we are entering into the peak season of hurricane season, and there are storms that the National Hurricane Center is already watching right now. I guess I shouldn't say storms, disturbances that the National Hurricane Center is tracking right now. So I would go to NHC, just type that into Google, NHC, and that should take you to the NOAA National Hurricane Center website, and you can see the other storms that they are tracking, the other disturbances that they are tracking in the Atlantic. But as of now, Dorian is the name of the game. It is the most pressing, and it is not moving. Stationary. Moving at wind speeds at 120 miles per hour, down from $185 just 2 days ago. It's wild how much this thing has already begun to calm down, but it still looks really impressive on radar, and it's still a very scary reality for anyone dealing with it, especially those in the Bahamas. So what I will tell you is that coming up at around 11:30, we are going to be going live on our Facebook page. And let me pull this up so you can see it. Be sure to follow us there, facebook.com/myradar. We are also on Twitter at MyRadarWX. You can also follow us on Instagram at MyRadar. And, of course, right here on YouTube as well, youtube.com/MyRadar. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Click on that notification bell that we always know whenever we drop a new video. We've got so much exciting stuff coming to the MyRadar YouTube channel, as we have had lately, and there's more stuff coming. We've got podcasts up there with some of your favorite meteorologists from across the country, including Alabama's own James Spann. That was a really cool one. Check that one out. We got a conversation with James Spann up there in the podcasts. We've got tutorial videos. Leslie Hudson produced an entire series on the hurricane season that is really, really interesting. Go check that out as well. So we've got so much exciting content coming to the YouTube channel and coming to the app. Remember, you can download it on iOS, Google Play, the Windows Store, as well as Amazon Alexa. Check us out on all of those platforms. Stay safe and stay dry. From all of us here at MyRadar, I have been meteorologist Mike Linden. Catch you in the next one.